Aloha and welcome to another episode of Tiki Room Talk, a Disney podcast. My name is Angela and I'm joined by my sister Christina.
We will be your master of ceremonies on this enchanted journey into weekly top 5 topics and helpful tips when experiencing all things Disney.
You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, YouTube, or on Libsyn. Just search Tiki Room Talk. If you like listening to us, be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Tiki Room Talk. We'd love to hear your feedback or answer any questions you may have, so be sure to reach out to us.
This week's topic, we will be discussing the top 5 underrated animated Disney movies.
Our siestas keep getting shorter and shorter, so let's wake up the Glee Club,
put on the show, and let's get Tiki talking.
Welcome back to another episode of Tiki Room Talk. Teen, how's it going?
It's going good, Ange. I'm excited about this topic.
I am too, and I want to apologize in advance. I have the hiccups, and I have had them on and off all day today, so if you hear me hiccup, that it just happened right there. That's the issue. This topic was a tough one to pick a top 5 for.
It's true. There's so many wonderful Disney animated movies, and I feel like some of them just don't get their due.
I agree, and just to give you a brief overview of Disney animated movies, Walt Disney Animation Studios has created and produced 58 animated feature films, starting with Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937, continuing through the most recent Frozen 2 in 2019. Just to clarify, this does not include anything produced by Disney Toon Studios, Pixar, Blue Sky Studios, or 20th Century Fox Animation.
At the moment, there's actually 3 feature films in development, with the next one being titled Raya and the Last Dragon, which is coming out in November of 2020.
While all of these films are amazing works of art, we feel that there are a few that are underrated. And Teen, what did you consider to be underrated? Like, what was your guidelines for that?
What I consider to be underrated is something that maybe was not as well received by critics or audience goers when they came out. Sometimes as time goes on, they get better, more well received and whatnot.
Like works of art.
Yeah. What were you thinking, Ange?
For me, when I thought about this, it was more what gets seen as much, meaning like, so on Disney channels or Freeform or, even just what people talk about. It's not usually, these movies aren't usually the topic of conversation, and they might not even be acknowledged too much in different parks. So that's where I was going with the underrated aspect.
Right. Like, if I asked you to name a Disney animated film, I think it's unlikely that maybe Melody Time, The Black Cauldron, or Home on the Range would come to mind. Yet these films carry the same Disney ingenuity and that films like The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, or Cinderella has.
Yeah, so we picked the top 5 underrated Disney animated movies, and we hope that you take some time to check these masterpieces out. And with Disney Plus, you will definitely be able to access all of these movies. We guaranteed you will be entertained. So, Teen, if you want to start us off with number 5.
All right, so number 5 for you today, we have a little movie called Chicken Little. And this came out in 2005. Chicken Little has actually a 36% on Rotten Tomatoes. I know.
It's a sad one.
It's a sad one. And give us a brief synopsis.
Yeah, so as you may recall, the classic fable Chicken Little caused widespread panic when he mistook a falling acorn for a piece of the sky. And now the young chicken is determined to restore his reputation. But just as things are starting to go his own way, a real piece of the sky lands on his head. Suspense, chaos, and plenty of laughs ensue as Chicken Little and his band of misfits, Abby Mallard, a.k.a. Ugly Duckling, Runt of the Litter, and Fish Out of Water, attempt to save the world without sending the town into a whole new panic. This time, when it comes to saving the world, it helps to be a little chicken. Took that from the internet.
The internet, people. Okay, couple of fun facts about this film. This was actually the first Disney film to be released in Disney Digital 3D.
Wait.
And it's actually also the last film to feature veteran actor Don Knotts before he passed away. The film grossed $314 million worldwide and was the second highest grossing animated film in 2005 behind DreamWorks' Madagascar.
This film features Zach Braff, Joan Cusack, Steve Zahn, Gary Marshall, Amy Sedaris, Don Knotts, Fred Willard, Catherine O'Hara, Patrick Stewart, Patrick Warburton, Adam West, and Harry Shearer.
And to visualize the story, Disney actually selected 50% of its new CGI animation team from its 2D animation staff, and they placed them through a rigorous 18-month training program to teach them how to do the 3D animation.
Wow.
The animation team took inspirations for its staging, coloring, and theatrical lighting from actually Mary Blair's background designs, which are featured in Peter Pan and Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, wow.
So, just to give you my thoughts on this movie. It's a cute movie. Yeah. I think it's really cute. I remember seeing it in theaters back in 2005. You know, if you look at it now, the animation's definitely different than what we have today. Because it was like the first time they were doing animated movies of that nature. Yeah. And I think it's a cute idea for a story. It's taking, like, you know, just cute little tale we all know.
I think it puts a different spin on it.
And puts a little bit of a different spin on it. I think all of the voice acting is really well casted. Yep. I'm a big Zach Braff fan. Yeah. So I think he's funny. And Joan Cusack is really great too. Apparently I'd read online that at one point they were thinking about making a sequel to this film.
Huh.
And it was going to be about the Ugly Ducklings, Abby Millard's relationship with Chicken Little and them kind of like starting to get together a little bit. Yeah. And it was going to go straight to DVD.
Okay.
And they ended up scrapping that.
Oh.
Yeah. I think they probably were a little disappointed with how it was received.
Yeah.
And it's not that it didn't make money. It did make money. But, you know, a lot of times you don't see this movie ever really played on TV much. You don't find Chicken Little in any of the parks at all. It's a cute movie. I think if you've never seen it, you know, watch it. I think you'll enjoy it. There's a really good veteran cast in it.
And it's got good, you know, it's good humor for kids, but it's also funny humor for adults. I remember my parents laughing at it because there were some things that were more like adult jokes. Yeah,
like the Run of the Litter. He had like Barbra Streisand.
Yes.
So there's some jokes like that which are really cute.
Yeah.
And the aliens are real cute. They're just kind of like these little puffs.
They're little, like
the troll hair, but minus the troll is what they look like. And they have 3 eyes. And it's a really cute concept, I think.
I agree with that. I enjoy this movie a lot.
It's got all your classic themes like, you know, friendship and
hero's journey.
Yeah, hero's journey, and it's about, you know, not fabricating the truth and stuff, because that's why nobody believed Chicken Little when he was saying the sky was falling and whatnot. And it's cute. I like it a lot.
I do too. I agree. And I definitely think that it is highly underrated. Number 4 holds a spot near and dear to my heart, and it is Fun and Fancy Free, which was made in 1947, which has a 75% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I actually think is kind of higher than what I would have thought it had.
I'm surprised.
Reading some comments that people had written, I'm kind of surprised that it got that high of a review.
I'm surprised too. This film is actually what's considered a package film, where it's a couple different stories put into one. And a lot of these were produced in the 1940s to save the studio money during World War II.
So the movie stars Edgar Bergen, Luana Patton, Dinah Shore, Cliff Edwards, Walt Disney, Clarence Nash, and Billy Gilbert. During the 1940s, Mickey and the Beanstalk and Bongo were originally going to be developed as 2 separate feature films. And in this movie, they are 2 separate stories.
Mm-hmm. They're 2 separate stories that come together. They're weaved together through a similar storyline.
Yes.
That involves Jiminy Cricket going to a party, little girl's party, and meeting a whole bunch of fun characters and stuff. The reason that this film kind of came to be is because in the late 1930s, Mickey's popularity actually kind of fell behind Donald Duck's and, you know, Goofy and Pluto. Also, Popeye was really big then. Porky Pig, really popular character back then too. So to boost his popularity, Disney wanted to create the cartoon The Brave Little Tailor. And then you also have like The Sorcerer's Apprentice from Fantasia came about at that time too. Back in like 1940, the animators pitched the idea of Jack and the Beanstalk starring Mickey Mouse as Jack, with Donald Duck and Goofy as supporting characters. But at the same time, they were also doing production on the Bongo segment of the film, which is based on a short story written by Sinclair Lewis for a Cosmopolitan magazine back in 1930. Originally, they thought that Bongo could be a sequel to Dumbo and have actually some of the cast from Dumbo in it as supporting characters, but it never kind of came to fruition that way. The idea was never really fully materialized.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that, and now looking back and
it makes sense.
It makes sense because the story of Bongo, he is a bear that is in a circus,
and he runs away.
And he runs away from the circus to go become a real bear, and he finds like the struggles of being a real bear after being pampered and being in a circus. But it's interesting to think like he could have been part of Dumbo.
Yeah, and that the other circus animals were going to be circus animals from Dumbo and stuff. So it would have been really interesting.
That would have been interesting if that came through. But
that,
I like how it's been done now.
So it had mixed reviews. One reviewer from the New York Times believed that it was really colorful. It was really happy, but just happy. Like there was no emphasis on anything really like profound or a lot of like deep storytelling. It was just like a cute little happy kind of movie. Just happy-go-lucky movie.
Yeah.
Another reviewer actually said that it was quite like, like mediocre. It didn't really like quite live up to the Disney standards of what filmmaking was at the time. And a lot of people didn't like the idea of mixing cartoons with live actors, which is something that the Walt Disney Studios had been doing since inception, way back with their Alice series. And, you see Into the Future with like Mary Poppins and Bedknobs and Broomsticks and stuff. It's something that they do a lot. And they do that in this film also because you have your live characters mixing and interacting with your animated characters, especially towards the end. And, some people I think didn't just quite get
it.
That, like there was maybe like too much going on, especially because you have Edgar Bergen, who was a ventriloquist. So you have, ventriloquy going on, and then you have animated characters, and it's just like,
and then you have the people,
like a whole soup of all kinds of things. And people, I think, really just didn't quite get that.
Yeah.
But Ange loves this movie, so tell us why you love this movie.
I do love this movie. This movie was I used to watch this movie all the time growing up. It's just always been one of my favorites. I don't even know why. I can't even really explain why it's one of my favorite movies. It just always makes me feel happy, and I sing along with all the songs, and it just makes me think of like growing up and it just always being around. One comment that I noticed, and Christina, you kind of hit on it, but someone from the time said, it's never a good idea to mix cartoons and live actors. I'm like sure he ate those words when Mary Poppins won 5 out of the 12 Oscars that they were nominated for.
Very true. Very true.
But for me, going back, it's a classic movie that I just think is really underrated. It's light and fun. It has different stories in it, so it kind of keeps children like attention because it's 2 different stories. They link them together, and I like that it has Mickey and Donald and Goofy because you don't see them much in Disney movies unless it's like a Christmas holiday special or something like that. So for me, I enjoyed seeing those characters, and I used to love ventriloquist puppets when I was a kid. I always wanted one, and I'm really glad my parents never got me one. But it always makes me happy.
Yeah, I think it's a really cute movie. It's got a good mix of everything you would love about Disney about it, because it's got Walt Disney playing Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
You got Jiminy Cricket in there, of course, and like you said, you have ventriloquy, which is not something you see every day.
In movies, yeah,
especially with Edgar Bergen, who was such a famous ventriloquist who inspired so many different people.
Yep.
If you read the Jim Henson biography, it talks about how much Jim Henson idolized Edgar Bergen. And it's cool to like actually see, because we weren't alive at the time. to actually see him doing his act and his bit and stuff. And so it's neat, and they mix that with classic stories and stuff, and everybody loves Jack and the Beanstalk. It's cool to see a different retelling of it where you don't just have Jack, you've got 3 characters that are going up there, and they're going up there to save that golden harp, and it's cute, and you don't see a lot of it in like the Disney parks. There's a gift shop in Fantasyland in Walt Disney World called, I think it's I don't remember if it's like Mickey's Traders or something like that, back by the castle. And if you look up at the ceiling, you'll see Willie the Giant from Fun and Fancy Free.
Yeah, but you would have no idea what that was from.
But if you've never seen the movie, you wouldn't know who that is. So you don't it's not one that's ever really talked about that much, and it's not really recognized a whole lot, but it does, I think, have a special place in like Disney history.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good movie to watch, so if you get a chance to watch it, I know it is going to be on Disney Plus.
Yep.
Definitely watch that.
Yes. So number 3 is The Emperor's New Groove, which was made in 2000. And that has an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yep. And you want to give us a quick synopsis of this one, too?
Yes. So the synopsis was just pulled from the movie. Arrogant young Emperor Cusco is transformed into a llama by his power-hungry advisor, the devious Diva Yzma. Stranded in the jungle, Cusco's only chance to get back home and reclaim his high life rests with a good-hearted peasant named Pacha. Together, they must return Cusco to the throne before Yzma tracks them down and finishes him off.
So this cast includes David Spade as Cusco. It has John Goodman, Eartha Kitt, Patrick Warburton again. I know we were talking about him earlier. And Wendy Malick. Development actually started on this in 1994, and we learned researching that it was actually originally supposed to be this big, epic drama musical called Kingdom of the Sun. And Roger Allers, who directed The Lion King, recruited Sting to compose several songs for this film. But because of the underwhelming box office performances of Pocahontas, which was in 95, and Hunchback of Notre Dame in 96, they brought in a new co-director to make the film more comedic, because Pocahontas and Hunchback were both big epic,
pretty heavy
dramas. But because of poor test screenings and production falling behind schedule, Allers actually left the film. And then Dindal, who took over as the new director, made it a lighthearted comedy instead of a dramatic musical.
I can't even imagine if it was a drama like that.
If you look at it now, you would think it would never lend itself to being a drama.
No way.
Because it's just
so funny.
It's just comedy from beginning to end with that movie.
Oh.
And it has such big comedic actors in it and stuff. You wouldn't... I just could never have pictured it being this big, epic, sweeping drama full of music. And they did keep some of the music from Sting too, so I think he ended up writing a couple of songs for the film. One of them they play in the credits.
Yep.
So he did still get to write some of the music for that.
Tom Jones never would have sang the song.
Yeah, Tom Jones sings the opening song and everything. It's really cute. So this movie came out on December 15th, 2000, and it actually did really poorly at the box office compared to most of the Disney films that came out in the 90s, which were big successes. The Emperor's New Groove grossed $169.3 million. But it actually found a lot more success when it was released on DVD. It became the best-selling DVD of 2001.
Did they have DVDs in 2001?
I think they did. Yeah.
Wow. We have it on VHS.
We have a copy of it on VHS.
Yeah.
But VHS, all the good stuff. But it got good reviews from the critics. They thought it was a really good, what they call the post-Renaissance era of Disney. For the post-Renaissance era, it was really good, and it was definitely the most comedic Disney film to ever be created. And they ended up making a direct-to-video sequel called Kronk's New Groove in 2005, and then they actually had an animated spin-off, The Emperor's New School, which was on Disney Channel from 2006 to 2008. So what do you think of this film, Ange?
For me, this is probably one of my favorite Disney movies of all time. It's so quotable. We talk about it all the time. And every time I watch this, I always laugh. We just watched it again.
We just rewatched it last night. So, yeah.
It cracks me up every time. I could probably quote the whole movie. I wouldn't do that to the person I'm watching it with. But I've recently seen it kind of coming and being more popular with... I know it's popular with people our age and our generation, but I think maybe it's becoming a little more popular to younger kids with clothes, with like funny shirts.
Yeah, we've been seeing like at Box Lunch some really cute Emperor's New Groove shirts.
Yeah, I've got a couple.
Yeah, but this is another movie too. There's nothing in the Disney parks about it at all.
No, yeah.
I mean, you've
never seen like an Yzma.
I've never seen an Yzma. I've never seen anything like even with a llama. I mean, it's it's interesting how it's just kind of like forgotten in Disney parks. But it's a good movie. It's a cute movie. It's very funny. It's something that adults will want to watch with their kids because there are some, there's humor for the adults. Yes. There's voices they'll recognize. The late Eartha Kitt is in it, and she does a fantastic job as Yzma. I think Yzma's one of the funniest villains you'll ever encounter because she's older, and so the whole film they're just making fun of how she's like scary beyond all reason is what they describe her as.
Yep.
And that she's like old and it's very funny. And Kronk is like that just kind of like
lovable
delightful
doofus
airhead. And he's got a shoulder angel and a shoulder devil that sit there and like fight back and forth and stuff. I won't give it all away, but if you get a chance to watch it, I don't know if this is going to be on Disney Plus to begin with. I know I read the list, but I can't quite remember if this one was.
It was on Netflix for a while, and I know their contract with Netflix is like they have to finish out their movie contract. So like I don't know if it'll start on it, but it will be there at some point.
Yeah, you'll probably be able to find it somewhere. So if you get a chance to find it, it's definitely one that's worth watching.
Yeah.
You'll definitely get a couple laughs out of it.
Oh,
There's a lot of fun scenarios in it.
Fun.
Everything's about it's pretty funny. All right, so number 2. Very epic. We have The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1996. So this film has a 74% on Rotten Tomatoes, which actually was higher than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Not that I think it's a fantastic movie, but I feel like a lot of people judge this movie really harshly.
Yeah. I remember I couldn't watch this. I think I've seen it like when I was a kid. I watched it maybe twice because it made me so sad.
Yeah, I remember the first time I watched it as a kid, it made me so sad. Yeah. Just because he doesn't end up, and I'm not spoiling anything, but he doesn't end up with Esmeralda.
Yeah, and you don't see that a lot in Disney movies. Yeah. That was something you really never saw before, I feel like, this movie.
Well, no, and one of the reasons I love Pocahontas, I know there's a lot of historical inaccuracies with Pocahontas, but I love that movie despite everything. And I think one of the reasons I loved Pocahontas was that they don't end up in the end. Because it's very bittersweet, but like they
kind of do, but they don't.
They don't at all.
Actually, didn't they make a Pocahontas too, where they like aren't together?
We're not going to go there, though. They ended up making a sequel to Hunchback, too, at one point. So this film, if you don't know, is based on the 1831 novel of the same name written by Victor Hugo. Victor Hugo, of course, also penned Les Miserables.
Les Miserables.
And, Ange, why don't you give us a brief synopsis?
All right. So, this was taken off of Rotten Tomatoes. An animated Disney adventure follows disfigured Quasimodo, the bell ringer of Notre Dame Cathedral, who bides his time locked away in a tower. With only gargoyles to keep him company, Quasimodo longs to be with other people, leading to his chance encounter with the enchanting gypsy Esmeralda. When the beautiful young woman catches the attention of Quasimodo's guardian, sinister Frollo, Quasimodo must help to keep her out of his clutches. And the cast of this movie is Tom Hulce, Demi Moore, Tony Jay, Kevin Kline, Paul Candell, Jason Alexander, Charles Kimbrough, David Ogden Stiers, and Mary Wicks in her final film role.
This film is always considered Disney's darkest animated film. And it is because it has a narrative that has themes that include, infanticide, lust, damnation, there's genocide, there's sin, but there were of course changes made from its original source material to ensure a G rating.
I was shocked to see that this was rated G.
Yeah.
I really thought
I thought it was PG too. I'm going to be honest,
PG because it's pretty heavy.
It's dark and it's heavy for kids. I think it's heavy for adults too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever read the novel. The novel's 10 times heavier. But it's for
an adult
adults and
novel,
stuff.
yeah.
But it's actually the first and the only Disney animated film that focuses on a traditional religious faith, which in this case is pre-Reformation Catholicism. They use words, they use the word God, they use the word Lord, they actually use the word hell many times. And it's the only Disney film to actually do that. It was released on June 21st, 1996. It got actually pretty positive reviews and a lot of commercial success. It grossed over $325 million worldwide, and it was the 5th highest grossing release of 1996. It also received an Academy Award and a Golden Globe for the score, which I think one of the things that makes this movie fantastic is the music.
The music's so good.
By far, the music. I'm a big Alan Menken fan, and I think Pocahontas has amazing score, but I think Hunchback is just as good because
I agree.
It's very epic. You got a couple throwaway songs in there, but every Disney movie usually does.
Yeah.
But most of the main songs are just
really good.
Fantastic. They actually even did a stage adaptation of the film, which was produced in Berlin, Germany. And it ran from 1999 to 2002. And as we mentioned before, they did do a sequel back in 2002 that was released just to VHS.
It's interesting, as you're talking about it, it makes me think, like, if they would make this movie today, and I don't know if they necessarily would because of its content, and also Disney used to have a show.
Yeah, they had
show, like
a stage production at what used to be MGM Studios.
Yeah, and I don't think they would have that now. Well, they obviously don't have it now, but I don't know if it would.
And it's a shame because other than you see Frollo in Phantasmic, but other than that, you see very little references to Hunchback. Although they did add an out there portion to the new fireworks show, which I think is well deserved because once again,
amazing song.
Awesome song. It should be in there.
But as far as not really ever seeing Frollo as a villain, he is an evil man.
Yeah,
and he is like he does not get the what he deserves. I mean, he is nasty. I would like to see him at like the Halloween party or something, but
and it was interesting. One of the changes from the novel is in the novel he's an archdeacon, and Disney I think didn't want to touch that. No. So in the movie they turned him into a judge. Yeah. So it's
a lot.
It's a lot.
He's
well, he lusts after Esmeralda, and I mean. He kills how many people?
Oh my gosh!
Like first 5 minutes of the film, he's killing people. Yep. So I mean, he's a really
and the way he goes is
it's violent. In fact, it's actually some people believe that his death in the movie is more violent than it is in the book.
Wow.
Yeah. It's definitely
it's powerful though. When that gargoyle like comes to life at him, like. He's going to hell. He's got it. Yeah. It's a lot. It's heavy. It's heavy.
In fact, I found this little fact when we were researching online too. So the producer, Don Hahn, when they were creating inspiration for Frollo, he actually modeled him after Ralph Fiennes' performance in Schindler's List. Which, if you've ever seen Schindler's List, goodness, that's an evil person. So.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Yeah, if you ever want to know how evil Frollo is.
Yeah. Oh God! Compared to that, jeez.
Yeah. So, and they did, children's movie. They did change the ending of the book as well, in that Quasimodo and Esmeralda are both, spared their lives and given happy endings. But actually, they can't be faulted for changing that because actually, Victor Hugo's libretto to the Hunchback opera had that ending where Quasimodo and Esmeralda did live. And Captain Phoebus was the one to save them. So no one can ever say like, oh, you Disneyfied it, because technically Victor Hugo did write that at one point. So what are your thoughts on it, Anne?
For me, I think it's really underrated. I think the music in it is phenomenal, and that's what adds to making it such a good movie. It is heavy and dark for kids, but I think it also has whimsical parts for kids to enjoy. So it's not like, oh, you can't have your kids watch this movie. It's still a good family movie. But you know what? It's dark, but so is Bambi. I mean,
and you got Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah. And like The Fox and the Hound. Like, there are movies that also have, hard elements for kids to see. But I mean, it's part of kind of how Disney pulls on the heartstrings a little bit.
Right.
And I think it's a shame that this movie doesn't get as much airtime as other ones do. I think
they do show it, I think, on Freeform now. I've seen it, I think, a couple times. Like we said before, you don't really see it a lot in the parks.
No.
You don't.
You used to, but not anymore.
Yeah, not quite as much. And maybe it was just because it was a movie of the 90s and,
right.
Popularity wanes and stuff like that. But it's a really good movie. It's a really... it's a it's a piece of literature that you can watch and have your kids watch and stuff. So it's really well done. There's some really creative things in this movie. So we rewatched this one last night too, and there was this one scene in the beginning. It's Clopin, and they show him as he's narrating, but then a flash of lightning occurs and it changes to the Archdeacon in like that split second. And I think it was like I forgot like that happened, but it was really cool. Like, you don't normally see things like that. And there's so many important themes in this movie, not just like friendship, but, about, not judging people.
Yeah, treating everybody the same.
And I don't know. When I was young, it was hard to watch, but I think sometimes that's where you learn the most lessons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
About bullying and things of that nature. So I definitely recommend this one.
And for me, my last remarks on this is I said that it's a beautiful film, and it shows the characters receiving a happy ending, but it might not be the traditional happy ending that we all would expect.
Mm-hmm. Which is, I think, what's pleasant about it too, is it's not always about the guy getting the girl.
Right.
It's not always about that love story.
Yeah.
There's other things that can happen in Disney movies too.
Yes,
so
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's really cool.
All right, Teen, take us to number one.
Our number one most underrated movie, and I have a feeling I'm going to do most of the talking on this one, is Fantasia. Fantasia came out in 1940, and it actually has a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
So I am not the only one that feels that this movie is a good movie.
Yes. From filmsite.org, their synopsis is, a Disney animated feature-length concert film milestone is an experimental film integrating 8 magnificent classical musical compositions with enchanting, exhilarating, and imaginative, artistically choreographed animation. The conceptual framework of the individual pieces embraces such areas as prehistoric times, the Four Seasons, nature, hell/heaven, the themes of light versus darkness and chaos versus order, dancing animals, classical mythology, and legend.
So, Fantasia is the third Disney animated feature film. It came right after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and Pinocchio. There are 8 animated segments in this film, and they're all set to pieces of classical music, which were conducted by the famous conductor Leopold Stokowski. And 7 of these were actually performed by the Philadelphia Orchestra. Music critic and composer Deems Taylor is our master of ceremonies in the film, and he gives a live-action introduction to each animated segment. So I think, for me, the reason that this film is underrated is because it's got a really rich history of, like, from conception to how it was received in theaters. If you ever get a chance to read any kind of Disney history book, it's really fascinating to read about this. So Fantasia was first released as a theatrical roadshow, and it was held in 13 U.S. cities. And it was acclaimed, by critics, but it was unable to make a profit because of World War II cutting off distribution to the European market. And the film had high production costs and expenses because they had to lease the theaters and install the Fantasound equipment. So when Walt Disney envisioned what Fantasia was going to be, he wanted to create like a full experience. He wanted this Fantasound, which was like an all around, you know, theater sound, like almost like an IMAX theater, like what you would have today.
Right.
And he wanted 4D elements to it. So he wanted like, you know, for the Beethoven sequence, somebody was going to come around and throw flowers. You'd get the scent of flowers because you're watching the mythical creatures like prance through the flowers and stuff. So it was supposed to be this like 100% immersive experience. And the audience just did not get it at all.
It's interesting because that's how PhilharMagic is.
I know. Yeah. And people love PhilharMagic and
it's
the 4D movies
change
that,
things. Yep.
Yeah, that they have at
He
Disney
was just
parks
too ahead
now.
of his time.
Yeah, he was just 100% ahead of his time on this one, and people just did not get it at all. You know, after World War II, the film was reissued multiple times. But a lot of its original footage was deleted or modified or restored. It's actually the 23rd highest grossing film of all time in the US when you adjust it for inflation, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah.
And the franchise has actually grown to include some video games, attractions. They do a live concert, which I would love to see.
Oh yeah.
They also had a sequel, Fantasia 2000, which came out in 1999 and was co-produced by Roy E. Disney, which is more of the same, different orchestrations, different pieces, set to different animation. And it's I also do like Disney Fantasia 2000 a lot too. But over the years, you know, it went from really poorly received to really well received. It's a really widely acclaimed film now. And in 1998, the American Film Institute actually ranked it as one of the 58th greatest American films of all time.
Wow.
They also actually have it as the 5th greatest animated film in their top 10 list of animated films. Yeah, so it's for something people didn't get back in 1940.
Yeah.
People love now.
Yeah.
And they understand it for what a masterpiece it really is.
Right.
So we actually just watched this one last night too. Ange, what did you think about it?
I liked it. I did. I think my favorite parts were the Sorcerer Mickey part, and I liked the animal segment where the animals were dancing. Mm-hmm. It has grown in reputation over the years, but it's never really shown on TV, and it is shown, like, you know, it is established in the parks in some ways. Like they used to have the Sorcerer Mickey hat in MGM or Hollywood Studios, and it is like seeing PhilharMagic and seeing Fantasia, like, you see the similarities. But I feel like when you ever talk to someone about, you know, Disney movies and Disney animated movies, this is very rarely brought up as someone's favorite movie. And yes, people know Sorcerer Mickey and they know the gargoyle from the parades and things like that.
Yeah.
Yes. But other than that, I don't know many people have seen it. Especially, I think many people like our age and younger generations.
Especially the newer generations, they probably have not. I mean, we had a little bit of a revival with like Fantasia 2000 when we were younger, but I think if you were to poll a bunch of little kids today, I doubt many of them know what Fantasia is.
Oh no, yeah, exactly. They know what Sorcerer Mickey is.
Sure, yeah,
but they probably have no idea where that came from. Mm-hmm. And it's a shame because it is such a historical piece of Disney animation history.
Yeah, I think one of the things that fascinates me about it, I do really love classical music, but I would love to have known, you know, what was going through the animators' heads where you're taking this classical piece of music and, like, how do you decide what you're going to put to that?
Right.
And, you know, there are certain things, like we were watching in the Tchaikovsky's Nutcracker Suite piece. Like, there was a part where you have this flute solo and they timed it with something that would like match something like to a flute solo, and you just think, like, I don't know, for me, I like what made them choose
to do that.
Yeah. I don't know.
It's creative.
It's a very creative thing. I don't know how they they went about doing it, or how they went about choosing the pieces, or what they were going to animate to each. But I think it's just it's a really interesting piece.
Yeah.
I think everybody should watch it. That's my opinion.
Yes, I agree. Just at least watch it once. Give it a try.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to its presence in Disney, at Walt Disney World Resort, they do have a miniature golf course.
Mm-hmm. It's called Fantasia Gardens.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And again, that is so cool. But if you've never seen it, it's hard to understand what the pieces mean.
You would look at it and think like, oh, these are cute dancing hippos.
It's a hippo and a tutu. But it's nice. It's cool to see where it actually came from.
And I guarantee you'll watch it and you'll probably recognize a lot of the music.
Yep.
It's a lot of classical pieces that you'll definitely know.
Yep.
And it's fun because you get to watch it and you're like, oh, I know this one.
Yeah. It's fun if you know, like I said before, like if you've seen Philhar Magic and Magic Kingdom, like you're like, oh, well that goes with that. Oh, that makes sense that goes there, and it ties things together. Yeah, same with like Fantasmic too, because it's all about Sorcerer Mickey and the dreams and stuff, and so it's definitely something worth watching. I believe this is going to be on Disney Plus. I think when I was reading the list of movies, Fantasia, and I think also Fantasia 2000 are going. I enjoyed Fantasia 2000 too. Yeah, Fantasia 2000 is pretty neat. Yeah. If you're watching it with little kids, they actually might enjoy Fantasia 2000 a little bit more. Yeah, it's a little more upbeat. It's a little bit more upbeat. It's shorter. Fantasia 2000 is like 75 minutes, and Fantasia is actually over 2 hours. Yeah, it's long. Like it has an intermission in it. Yes, it's that long. But at the time, it was supposed to be this big theatrical, like right. If you were going to a theatrical event, it's gonna have an intermission. And Fantasia 2000 brings some celebrities that we all know and love in to introduce each segment and stuff. I really enjoy the Rhapsody in Blue segment. They have some really you'll enjoy it. Yeah. You'll enjoy it. I recommend both of them. Yes. But if you're going to only watch one, definitely watch Fantasia. Yes. So, we are moving on to our honorable mentions, which we have The Fox and the Hound, which was made in 1981, and it has a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Okay, so really, really brief synopsis of this one. It's about a lifelong friendship between a fox cub and a bloodhound puppy. And it's basically a movie about tender animation friendship from Disney. It was made during what they call like the Disney Dark Ages, when Disney wasn't really producing big hits or anything like that, right before the Disney Renaissance started with The Little Mermaid. So it tends to be forgotten a lot. You don't see it. I see it on TV very often. No. You don't see it. You used to a little bit more. Years ago, but not as much anymore. Recently, I haven't seen it much. No. You don't see a lot of it in the parks or anything that. Yeah. I would think the younger generation probably has not seen it. Yes. Before. Some interesting things I found out about this movie. So the directors of this movie was two gentlemen. They went on and started their own company, their own production company, and they later made the film The Swan Princess. I used to watch that one a lot. Did you know that? Younger. I didn't know that either. So The Fox and the Hound was the last film that was worked on by animation legends Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston, who were two members of Walt Disney's original 9 Old Men, who worked on this film, with it being their last film. And it was also the first film for future Disney leaders like Tim Burton, who did The Nightmare Before Christmas, Brad Bird, who did The Incredibles and Ratatouille, and Glenn Keane, who animated the bear in this film and later worked on other animated films like The Little Mermaid and Beauty and the Beast. Also, quick shout out, Mickey Rooney's in this movie. I did not know Mickey Rooney was in this movie. And also, I watched it not that long ago, and I was really excited to find out that and I'm so sorry, I don't know his name, but the actor that plays Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is in this movie. Oh, does he play he plays the guy? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This was also the final Disney film to have all the credits in the title sequence as opposed to having them in end credits. And at the end of the film, the last Disney animated film to use the Buena Vista logo. Well, it was the last Disney film which Don Bluth had worked on. Who's Don Bluth? He did like all of those, like
other animated studio films
Oh,
like
okay.
Fievel. He did Anastasia.
Oh, yeah. You
Thumbelina.
can tell the
He was the
animation.
animator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can
so
tell.
like
Yeah,
they all look
yeah,
like.
they
Yeah,
all look like. It's sad for kids. I remember always being sad watching this movie, but it's such a good movie and it's about friendship.
It's got a real
It's really
awesome
sweet.
song, Best of
Yeah.
Friends, and it's a really cute movie.
It's a sweet movie. It
Yeah,
is.
it's a cute one. It might be a couple tears.
But
not gonna
happy
lie.
tears.
Yeah, I think I even have a couple tears when I watch it now.
I know. I do.
It's a good one about friendship and learning to let go and being friends despite your
Differences. Yeah.
and
It's a sweet movie.
It's a very sweet movie.
And our last honorable mention is Ichabod and Mr. Toad, which was made in 1949, which has a 93 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is like insane. This is why I don't believe Rotten Tomatoes, but a 93%.
I wouldn't have guessed that, to be honest with you.
I would not have guessed that at all.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
It's the 11th animated feature film.
This is also one of those package films that we were
Yes.
talking about in the 40s when the studio was low on cash. It's The Wind in the Willows, but it's also The Adventures of Ichabod Crane.
Yes. It's about Mr.
they're-
Toad and his friend and their adventures on Toad loses his mansion and it's him trying to get his
He
mansion
loses
back.
Toad Hall because he's obsessed with a motor car.
Yep.
Motor cars were just becoming a thing, and he sees one and he wants one. And he gets accused of stealing one. And he goes on trial. He loses Toad Hall to a bunch of weasels. And yeah,
It's about him and
it's
his
fun
friends
ensues, yeah.
banding together and getting Toad Hall back.
Mhm.
And then the story of the Headless Horseman. Is that what it's called?
I believe the
Sleepy
story
Hollow.
is called The Adventures of Ichabod. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, the story with Ichabod Crane
It's
is,
written by Washington Irving.
Yeah, it's the story of the Headless Horseman and Sleepy Hollow. And for me, like, this was a real missed opportunity for Freeform to show on 13 Nights of Halloween.
It's a good Halloween movie. It is.
It is. It's a really good. It's a good.
It's got a creepy ending.
It's a creepy story.
And it's got a creepy ending.
Yeah, the ending. You don't know if he lives
You don't know
or
if he
dies.
died or not.
I like to think that he's died. I really do.
He wasn't a good guy. It's
No.
funny. It's like a story full of people you don't like.
You don't like.
Like, nobody's likable
No,
in it.
Ichabod is just like a guy who eats a lot and like wants to date Katrina for her father's money. Katrina's a little player. The guy
Yeah.
in it is like a jerk.
Yeah,
And then
it's
there's,
a
like-
bunch of characters you will not like.
No, the only character I like is Ichabod's horse.
But it is narrated by Bing Crosby.
Bing.
Love Bing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Bing. Bing does everything through it.
yeah, he does all the different voices, and he of course is singing and
Singing,
stuff,
'cause you
doing his
can't have
crooning. Yeah,
Bing not sing.
yeah. So it's a good one.
Some of my thoughts on this are I like how in when the story of Mr. Toad, I like how Disney animated it so that all of the characters are life size. So when they're in the courtroom scene, you see it a lot. Like there's people in the courtroom, so people are living amongst these animals. Like it's no problem, and the animals are the actual size of the animals that they would be compared to people. I thought that was creative. The mole was my favorite.
Yeah,
Because he's so sweet and he's so
cute.
nice. The animation and the characters, I know Christina and I talked about this together, but they're very similar to other movies. So
it reminds me a lot of Robin Hood. I don't know if it's because they're both animals, but
Mr. Toad?
yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds
And
me a
then
lot of Robin Hood.
Ichabod, the little girl Katrina looks like
She looks
Cinderella.
a lot like Cinderella. And then and I can't think of his
The gentleman
character's
in
name.
it.
The gentleman in it. I think it's Braun or something like
Something.
that. He looks just like Gaston.
Gaston. Yeah.
Gaston, like, way before his time. But
Yeah.
it's interesting, too, because you have this classic British children's novel, and then you pair it with this classic American tale.
Yeah.
You know, you're kind of, like,
It
getting
is
a little bit
interesting
of
how
each,
they
yeah.
compared those because they're really nothing similar.
Well,
to each
and
other.
I had read before that what had happened was Disney wanted to do The Wind in the Willows, but it wasn't long enough to
Yeah.
make it a full-length feature film. So they only had enough to, make it like a 30-minute segment. And so they were like, well, what can we pair this with? And that's when they decided to compare it to The Adventures of Ichabod Crane. So
Yeah, I think it's a good one. We used to watch this a lot. Our cousin's birthday is in October, so we always used to go to her house and we would watch this, the story of Ichabod, around Halloween. So that plays a big part in my childhood, too.
If you find yourself in Disneyland, go on Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. Classic Disneyland ride, opened with Disneyland back in the 1950s. They used to have it in Walt Disney World. They replaced it with the Winnie the Pooh ride.
Yep.
But it's an interesting film, or an interesting ride.
Yeah.
You end up in hell.
Yeah.
And a lot of times kids are scared by it. So if you do find yourself there with little children, you might want to be cautious of that one.
Know what you're riding.
It's an interesting dark ride. You don't find many like it. So.
No, but but you don't see too much of it in the parks.
No,
that's not true.
Well, Christmas time, Halloween time, they do have the Headless Horseman at the beginning of the Boo to You parade, which is like the coolest thing ever.
It's my favorite part.
He's got a real horse. It's like a big, gorgeous Clydesdale. It's a whole
and they
thing.
do have the Sleepy Hollow waffle.
They do. Yeah. So you can find kind of
you got a little bit of it in there.
A little bit.
But if you don't know it,
definitely,
if
you find yourself at Halloween time thinking, look at I watched
something different,
watch this one.
Watch Ichabod and Mr. Toad. So hopefully these movies sounded interesting for our listeners, and I'm sure not everyone is going to agree with these choices. We'd love to hear your feedback and on what movies that you think are underrated at Disney animated movies.
Yeah, leave us a comment on social media with your thoughts. If you have any questions, any recommendations, anything you want to talk about.
Yeah. And thank you guys for listening.
And we'll see you real soon.